Happy Wednesday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. Great networking event this morning in the club room. Check out Win Again Academy and Mark Moyer on LinkedIn for more information. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Valerie Villegas. I knew I was going to mess that up. Villegas in the Wolff Den. Great to have you here. For the people in the audience who don't know who you are, just give a real quick intro and then we'll get into everything. And I think you're on mute.
Nope. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So hi, I'm Valerie Villegas, and I run the Robert Villlegas Foundation. It is a nonprofit organization that's going to help the community, youth have access to martial arts.
Well, I think we got to start by explaining who Robert was and why you started this thing. So we'll go there. I'll let you tell him.
Okay, so Robert Villegas, he was my husband. He passed away from COVID about a year and a half ago. He was 46 years old. He was a mixed martial artist, and he had several black belts, Taekwondo, Jiu Jitsu, Judo, Karate, and he did fight professionally, MMA for like Bellator and Pride. He was almost back in the day when the UFC show, The Ultimate Fighter, had just started. He was one of the, finalists was going to be on with like Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson. It was pretty cool stuff. But he did bring jiu-jitsu to the Corpus Christi community. He was the first instructor to bring the discipline out here because he wanted to introduce it to everybody. He had a gym for 20 plus years, decided to kind of be home when we started growing our family a little bit more, and had some younger children. And, unfortunately he contracted COVID. He was healthy, in shape. None of what you were hearing about comorbidities or anything like that. And 3 weeks later, he passed away.
Well, millions of people died with COVID. It's okay. We don't mind having some guests and visitors. Millions of people across the world died from COVID. Millions of others affected by it, maybe not with death, but just a lot of hardship. Mm-hmm. When COVID first came out, was that a concern of yours? Was it something you guys thought about? Did you talk about it? I mean, I guess it's always a personal question. Did you guys get vaccinated? All of that stuff. What was your environment in the home with regards to COVID when it first happened?
Well, actually, we were always very COVID conscious. I am a hospice nurse. I'm an RN by trade. I've done that last 15, 18 years. So, of course, my patients and priority were, top of the priority list, because, of course, I have my family, which is, your life, and then my patients. And just because they may be at the end of their life, I wanted to make sure they had the best quality of their end of life. So I couldn't take anything into somebody's home, and potentially infect people. So I was always very careful. My kids were very careful. And Robert, when he had retired kind of from the gym scene, he became a truck driver. He had a 7 to 3 Monday through Friday job, perfect schedule on his, for anybody, I guess. And so he really wasn't in contact with too many people. So he really never worried about that. It was very rare that he, kind of had to go. And we trained at home. We actually would do Gracie University. It's an online jiu-jitsu system that he liked for us to use at home. So that's what we would do. So yeah, we were very conscious of it. I'm not really sure where he contracted it from. But on December 26th, which was our youngest son's, baby Nicholas, his first birthday, is when he started showing symptoms.
And was it clear that if he just wasn't going to make it, or did that even come as a sort of a surprise?
Honestly, probably till the last hour or two did I actually come to the realization, okay, he's not going to pull through. Because he was so healthy, he always ate really clean. I was always worried if anybody got sick, I would have complications, because I wasn't quite as healthy and fit and, ate as clean as he did. And, so even the doctors, the first week that he had it, he was at home, antibiotics, different, because of course I was on top of checking him head to toe every day just to make sure, and already knowing that normally to him, oh, I'm okay, don't worry about it, I'm good. And he looked okay, you know. And I remember the day we took him to the hospital, he actually woke up feeling better because we had gone to an urgent care the night before. They gave him some injections of steroids and antibiotics, you know, which he needed. And then I noticed that he was breathing differently. And so I checked his oxygen like I would normally do, and it was in the 80s. And I have like 2-3 machines of each, you know, blood pressure and everything else. Yeah. And so I told him, yeah, I don't think this is good. I said, I see you're breathing okay, but let me listen to you. I did. And, you know, it was minimal like breath sounds coming out. And he's like, no, I feel fine. And I'm like, look, you're either going to pass out in a few minutes and have EMS, you know, your boys see EMS take you away, or you're going to get up, go to the ER. They'll give you some oxygen. You'll come right back home, is really what I thought would happen. So reluctantly, he's like, fine, let's go. Right. So we went, we took him to the ER. We weren't able to go in with him at that time. It was very, very strict. And the next thing you know, he's telling me they're admitting him. So I'm like, okay, he's going to get antibiotics, a little bit stronger, start on the COVID treatment. And so he was in there for a week in a regular, you know, room. And the medication he wasn't getting better. He was getting worse. And I would talk to the nurses, but they told me it was pretty common for them to get worse a little bit before they got better, because it takes a few days for the medications to really kick in. So I said, okay. And I know that's true. But then his oxygenation got worse. So from a regular mask, you know, like an oxygen mask that he had on, it was called a BiPAP machine. And it completely covered his whole face, strapped in. And he had that on 24/7 for about 7 days. And anytime he would take it off for even a second, then his oxygen would go down to the 40s and 50s.
Were you able to visit him?
Actually, no, I was not able to, Robert. I was not able to visit him at all. Up until then, as when he could talk, we could do FaceTime, either through our phone, or if he was having trouble, the nurse would help us. So sometimes he would just put the phone on FaceTime and just kind of put it on the bedside table for facing him, and he would hear me and the kids talk, and he'd kind of say hi. But we couldn't go into the hospital to see him. And then since I myself also had COVID as well, my little ones had COVID as well. So not until he was actually intubated, when they put the ventilator on him, which was probably on day 14, was I able to go to the hospital, only because their iPad was broken. So they couldn't get me that FaceTime visit. And I'm like, come on, I'm a hospice nurse. That's what I do for a living. I take care of dying people. Like, I need to help my husband. So they would let me come in. Actually, this angel of a nurse would let me come in every night, middle of the night, for 3 or 4 hours and just sit with him and, you know, do whatever care he needed. So yeah, he had the ventilator on for about 7 days, and lots of complications. The doctor told me, you know, he's like, because I told him, you need to be straight with me. Yes, I'm his wife and I'm very emotional, but I am still like a medical professional, and I need to know what we're looking at, because I also have kids. I've had 6 kids in the house that I need to know what I need to start preparing for. And he did tell me, he goes, well, one thing I can tell you is he is the sickest man in the hospital, but he's healthy. You know, he's strong, doesn't have any other pre-existing conditions. Like, there was still hope, you know. And I had it too, of course. He was just emotionally, mentally, so physically strong, you know what I mean? And mentally strong, you know. I'm like, okay, I don't get surprised if he, you know, just sits up and takes out the ventilator, you know, because he's had enough of this. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, that just wasn't the route he was taking. So he ended up passing away on Monday, January 25th. They started doing CPR on him the day before, and they'd done it several times. And, you know, his body just wasn't responding. So
you mentioned 6 children, obviously very young. Did they have any idea what was going on?
The older ones, it's 19, 17, 14, and then 6. This is the ages now: 6, 4, and 2. So the older ones did. They understood. They kind of knew what was going on. The little ones did not. They knew that daddy was sick. They knew that daddy was sick. and going to the, he was at the hospital because the doctors were going to help him because he had a cough. And they did know that he had COVID, because they heard the word COVID. And so when I would go see him at night, I would put the phone towards him, like so they can FaceTime him. But they never were able to see any of the tubes or anything like that. I would just tell them Daddy was sleeping. And they always knew when Dad liked to sleep, he liked to sleep. So the boys wouldn't talk. They never made noise. They already knew Daddy's routine. So I just tell him like, shh, Daddy's sleeping. So they would just tell him they loved him in his ear. But they did not understand at that point. So it was, me being a medical professional, well, I understand that they did everything that they could do. And I do believe that they did. And the doctor's telling me at the end, he's like, I'm sorry, I tried. And, and I felt bad because I'm like, well, I know you did. But, how do I tell the kids that the doctor didn't save Daddy because I told him he would? I don't think I meant to say it out loud to him. It was just, and he just started bawling. I mean, he's the sweetest doctor. And I know, because believe me, we were in contact several times a day, every day. And he's just like, I'm sorry. But, that's wasn't in our cards. And they, so a lot of people thinking, oh, you can only get sick and, die if you have other things going on and it's not a real thing. And, I don't care where it came from or how it came, but what I do know it was here and it is, and it's a real thing. I went through all the records. I read them. I saw what it did to his lungs because there was nothing else wrong with him. They were basically like rocks, so.
This was a long process, which is, it was drawn out. And as you're going through this, the world is, you see the numbers and then you hear the deniers. And so what, I don't know how often you're on social media or what you heard when you're out and about or even in the hospital. What was your reaction to people who were sort of dismissing it as you're going through this?
It was tough. I normally am, I understand everybody has their beliefs, and I'm usually pretty kind of patient and, about what everybody thinks. And there was actually some people fairly close to me, that knew my husband, he would train with them and, practice here and there. And, I'd still hear them making comments. And I knew that they weren't ever directing anything at me, but that, they would be like, oh, there was just another ruse to get more money on immunizations or whatever. And, I basically just had to keep myself away. I knew that I couldn't say anything without getting emotional, because not only did my husband pass away, my best friend, the father of my children, this strong mentor in the community. Everybody knew him. I didn't realize how much of an impact he had on my community. Until he passed away. I had hundreds of people that didn't know me looking for me on Facebook, just different Instagram, reaching out to me, thanking me for him, of the difference he made in their lives. He took me off the street. He gave me some place to stay. He brought me to the gym. He kept me away from drugs, because he always would tell me that he felt he had a calling to mentor these young men from broken homes. His dad died when he was 19 of a massive heart attack. And he said, even though I did have him growing up, I felt broken. I was a young man going out in the world and I still needed my dad. So I never wanted these guys to feel like that. Yeah. And so it's very ironic, to say the least, that,
I lost my dad when I was 29. He was in a hospital, cancer, pancreatic, and it goes fast. So it was quick, and we knew it wasn't going to get better. But you hear all these stories afterwards, and people reach out, and someone wrote a letter that I still keep. Talking about the impact that my father had. And so it's a great feeling to know all this, but two things, like why we shouldn't have to wait till something like this happens to understand how important someone is. That's one thing. And then, the second thing is, you're in the hospice world, so you understand. But those people in general they know that it's the end, and so it's a different feeling than someone who you think very easily. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a higher power kind of thing, but you very easily could have walked out of that hospital and it just would have been a story to tell. I got COVID. I was very surprised how mild my symptoms were. So it's as a hospice nurse, how did you navigate through this for yourself, and who was there to sort of help you? You got all these kids that are looking to you for answers, and how did you sort of get through the moments up until the end?
It was difficult. My first priority was my kids, of course, because they have all these questions. Where's daddy? Why isn't he coming home? Tell the doctors to hurry up. We have class next week, because they were used to daddy taking them. He wanted to be more of their, he wanted to be dad, not their coach, even though he was going to show them all the cool stuff later. Yeah. But, so I did have, one of his older sisters that was very, very supportive for me. And it's hard in that time when these kinds of things are going on and families aren't understanding and everybody wants different things done at different times. The only things that I had in my head is, what did my husband want? We had those deep conversations. Granted, we never really thought that we needed. Sometimes we talk about one time we were just in a random conversation talking and, I said, if, he had said, if something ever happened to him, if he would want me to remarry. And this was just total random. I don't know, maybe we're watching a movie or something. And he's like, well, yeah, of course. So of course me, being a woman, all offended, like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean you would want me to remarry? And he's just like, oh, somebody needs to take care of you. He goes, and I know you don't need to be taken care of, but I don't want you worried. I don't want you worried about the kids. Like, you need to be okay. So I was like, well, okay, then that's better. And then he's like, well, how about me? Wouldn't you want somebody to take care of me? I'm like, no, I took care of you just fine. You're going to be busy with all the kids, so we had these conversations that, of course, we never really thought we were going to need soon. And, but not everybody understood that,
You joke around like that, and it's funny, right? But it's also important to have tough conversations, especially as we get later in life. When I'm 46, you just never know, and you want to be sure, yeah, what the other person wants, and then also what do I need to do? So, I mean, you're here, you're getting close to the time when you think this might not end well. What are you thinking about in the future? Because eventually, and we're going to talk about the foundation.
Yeah.
When did that become a thought to you? And what was your thought? What am I going to do next?
Initially, probably at the point when they put him on the ventilator. Like I said, I still had all faith and all hope he was going to pull through and be just fine. But me being a hospice nurse and just a nurse in general and seeing the way things can go and turn, I did have to start making plans. For instance, talking to funeral directors and just different things like that, because I knew if that time came, I didn't know how I was going to be at that time. And I was the only one who had these conversations with my husband. I hadn't talked to the kids about it or his family or anybody else, because those are just personal conversations, So, when I was talking,
do you wish you would have had more conversations about stuff like that? Maybe prepare or support.
I think the thing that I wish I would have, because we did have plenty of those conversations, and I think because I am a hospice nurse, it was a lot easier for me to talk about and kind of bring up, just knowing what I would see every day. But he had told me that we needed to get life insurance. Literally not even 3 or 4 weeks before. And of course, I had a smaller plan with work. He had a smaller plan with work, but not anything substantial that could help in this kind of situation. And I said, yeah, okay. I said, it's the holidays. I'll do it in a couple of weeks, right at the new year. Well, the new year came and he was already in the hospital. I couldn't get life insurance on him at that point because he was already diagnosed with COVID. At that point in that year, they weren't letting anybody who had been diagnosed with COVID get an increase or any additional life insurance. So I wasn't able to. So then I'm thinking, how am I going to pay for everything? How am I going to maintain my house? And yes, we can downsize, but my kids just lost their dad. They have the swing in the front yard that daddy made with them. They have the, stuff in the backyard on the wood where they've etched out their names and crazy random things that they did together, that those are their memories. That's what they're hanging on to. So, as a mom, I don't feel like I can just get up and move, to something smaller to make things a little bit easier for myself. So yeah, I mean, financially it's been very difficult, and, they did talk about a whole bunch of assistance being out there for COVID survivors, or COVID widows. I had a hard time finding a lot of that assistance. And I looked, having 6 kids. I was out of work for about 3 months. Being a hospice nurse, you can't be out in the field for a year if you lose somebody close to you, an immediate family member, because of the strain that the job has on you. And of course, your emotions, making sure you're emotionally able to do that kind of job.
I understand that, but your emotion, if you're a human being, just doing that job is maybe even more, I'm not saying more than your husband dying, but man, I could never do it. I have family members. My grandma was in the hospital for a long time and never came out. My grandfather in the hospital. I can't do it. I can't be around people. So it's a special person who can do that. That seems, I think there should be some type of exception for that. I mean, or could you be?
Well, what they ended up doing with me,
something else.
Yeah, actually, I guess it was a good thing. It was a wonderful thing. But years back, I had done a lot of director of nursing positions, whether it was for a nursing home or different facilities. When we started having our little kids, we wanted to be home more. So that's when I went to a regular field nurse position. And then he went to his truck driving job. But after my 3 months that I had off with my job protected on FMLA, they had a director position open. So talking to a lot of people and making, seeing mentally where I was at and all that kind of stuff, I was able to get that position. And I did not think that I would get it. The one question that the VP asked me was, because we know your situation, because you were already part of our company, how do I know that you will be able to do this job? It's stressful. You're dealing with a lot of people. I'm like, well, you're not going to get somebody who's going to work harder than a widowed mom of 6 kids, that has nobody else to turn to but herself. So, there's nothing else I can tell you. My experience, what I can do, and now you know where I'm at. So she's like, okay, can you start on Monday? And I'm like, yes. So I was very blessed to be able to have that opportunity at that time. And of course, everybody, knowing my situation in the office, and I'd already worked with them for so long, it was kind of like being at home with family. So that was how they helped me.
Everyone grieves differently. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I've lost my father and grandparents, lost, some friends that I knew. My feeling that life goes on. Life doesn't care that you lost someone. So, you got to grieve, right? And grieving is important. You can't keep it in, but you also can't just forget about everything else that's going in your life. It's the same way. Like I had depression. Like life moves on. Life doesn't care if you're depressed or not. You have to do so. What when did you start to think about the foundation, and what was that process like for you? Because you have to work. You're going to try and start this foundation. You have a family that you have to take care of. What did that look like? And do you remember all of it? Because a lot of people don't remember.
Yeah. Oh no, I do. Actually, I remember like it's a whole movie in my head. That I guess that happens with trauma sometimes. But it was about September of 2021 when we were looking at his anniversary, his year anniversary coming up. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to do some kind of, I don't know, something just to celebrate him, with all the people. I'm so sorry. With all the people, who wanted to, because people were reaching out to me. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to do this? Or we want to donate something, or we want to do something. So at that point, I was thinking, I'm like, maybe let me raise some money. Let me start, maybe do a few scholarships for some martial arts and stuff. He always wanted to make sure kids were in the gyms, right? But then I thought, well, if I raise just a little bit of money, and I can help, I don't know, just say 10 kids, right? How would I pick those kids? How would I differentiate, like, who needs it more than the other? I mean, just because somebody's low income doesn't mean they need it more than the person, like me, who I'm not technically, even though I have no money, I'm not technically low income, but I can't get any low income
Join
help.
the club.
You help. And then I can just hear my husband telling me, like, you can't pick and choose a child. You got to help them all. Do what you can do to help them all. That's what he would say. He could care less.
Did you ever have discussions of something like this while he was alive, or even towards the end?
Oh, when he would talk about like the gym and a lot of the kids that he would have, and I say kids, they could be teenagers, young adults, would come into the gym, and because I would tell, like, a lot of these, kids are free. Like, what is it? Why do you do it? Just me being curious, like, what's it? And that's when he would tell me, he's like, I can't pick and choose who I help. Everybody's situation is different, and it doesn't make it better or worse than anybody else's. And if they come to me that they need help and they want to use their energy here rather than being out in the streets, and then that's what I'm going to do. So you don't pick and choose because you don't feel that their story is bad enough, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so he almost was doing what you were looking
pretty much. Yeah, but he could coach it. Right. He was already excellent. He was pretty awesome at it, actually.
Yeah. So what was it like to, you're raising money? How does that become a foundation? And tell us more about how that works.
Yeah. So, I was really blessed to, just start meeting and knowing a lot of the people in the martial arts industry here in the Corpus area, and talking to them about my idea. And they're like, yeah, that would be great. I'm like, if we can create this foundation, get it, in with the IRS, our 501c3, to where we can actually make it a functioning business, to where, we can help people here in Corpus. We can help people in California. We can help people everywhere, as we get these funds in, because, worldwide, I think it was like 6 million kids are orphaned by one or two parents because of COVID. That's just COVID. That's not cancer. That's not car accidents. That's not heart attacks, and I guess the average age was from 2 to 10. Were the children who lost the most amount of parents. Texas and California are number 1 and number 2. So there's, and you don't even know, these kids are walking around and you don't even know what they're going through, So as we started talking, I started meeting new people, started networking on the win again, which was great, because I was so brand new at everything, but I'm like, I need to get motivated. I need to meet people so that I can make this something that he would want. Everything my husband did, it was, you go big or you go home. You put 100% of your effort into anything you're going to do. So that's what I've been doing. So we did get our 501c3 approved in March of 2022 through the IRS. So that was really exciting. I'm starting to work with a lot of people helping me on my marketing plan and budgeting plan. And I was actually in California a couple of weeks ago. I went up to visit Gracie University, because that was the system that we use here at home. And I would ask my husband, like, if you can do this, why are we on the computer, doing this other program? He loved it. He was just amazed at the job that they did. They have a kids program. It's completely online. And then they have, of course, the jiu-jitsu and the women's self-defense, which to me is really important, because now, as a, widowed mom of 6, I need to protect my kids. And yes, I started learning jiu-jitsu because I started training with my husband the last couple of years, but it's different than when you're getting attacked and somebody comes from behind you. You know what I mean? And so that Grace University, their Women Empowered program is, really awesome. My daughter started doing it as well, my 19-year-old, because it teaches you, if somebody's going to come and attack you, that's kind of what they go off of. And so either way, and I wanted to talk to them about the foundation, see if we could possibly potentially, have some kind of partnership, because we share a lot of the same beliefs, the way, they treat the kids, how their programs are run, things like that. And it's funny now that I've learned so much more about, say, like that Grace University and just the family in general. My husband always taught me the history of jiu-jitsu. He wanted to make sure that I knew it. And, they're all in it. It's the Gracies. And when I actually went up there, I saw the program, saw how they taught, got to meet them and some of their staff. It was like, now I know why this is what he wanted to do, because that's what he learned, so I'm really, excited to, we have our website up and we're updating that as well. Everything I had done so far, I've done by myself, and I'm pretty proud of it. But then there's some things I'm like, oh, I got to fix that.
Look, you're doing a great job. People don't understand how difficult it is to do any type of venture like this. On top of you're working, you're a mother of a large family. You're grieving and will grieve for the rest of your life. I mean, it's just they don't understand it. But there are people who want to help. I met you there, and I'm just like, what can I do to help? Yes. I can't do a lot, but what can I do to help? And I know there's a lot of other people like that. What's been the toughest? Because I'm sitting. I mean, we could have the same answers. Like, what has been the toughest thing for you trying to get this done?
I think right now it's kind of getting out there and meeting people that want to help, say financially help get this thing off the ground. And of course, because it's very brand new, and we're just, now I do have exactly what we're going to do, the yearly scholarships we'll want to give out for the martial arts program, and for the equipment as well. Because, a kid can go to a martial arts class, but they're not going to feel comfortable if they don't have a gi like everybody else, or they don't have their sparring equipment. And martial arts, it's a pretty expensive sport. And that's why a lot of kids can't do it. The women's self-defense too. A mom is not going to go and pay money to go do a self-defense class before she pays for her kid to get into that class, so it's and so we want to also open a youth center. And that is my ultimate goal, is the youth center, where I can provide structured martial arts classes, and not just jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, karate, boxing, Muay Thai, different disciplines of martial arts, and also have women's self-defense going at the same time. So mom can come to class, and this would all be free of charge for them. Mom can come to class, do her class, feel comfortable, confident, empowered, and she can have her child, doing the whatever class it is that they want to do as well. If parents are not able to come, the mom can't come, she's at work. We want to be able to pick the kids up after school, have them do their classes, offer tutoring help, counseling help. It was very hard for me to get any kind of counseling help for my kids. We lost our insurance when dad passed away. Like I said, and I was in between making too much to get any help and not enough to be able to pay for anything. So it was a struggle for me to get my kids any kind of counseling, and they needed it. I mean, I was ranging at that time from 1 to 18 in age. Yeah. How do you manage all those ages?
And you're in Texas, which I don't know what else to say. Yeah. Texas didn't really care too much about COVID. It doesn't seem they care too much about anything, but they didn't care too much about COVID. It's going to be a weird phenomenon to talk about COVID at some point, because when your husband died, it was actually the peak of deaths, and it was the peak. It was 3,000-4,000 a week, and then there was a lull. And then actually around the anniversary of his death, there's another peak, yeah. Right? And now we're sort of at that lull, but there's still 500 people dying a week. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot if we're talking about the entire United States, but that's a lot. That's still people who are doing it. Eventually, it's going to be way less, but we're going to be far removed from it. And it's going to be just weird to talk about in the same way people died from cancer. I never like to compare stuff, but certainly even within cancers, there's stuff that's worse to either deal with or wrap your head around. It's gonna be tough to wrap your head around. Like someone died from COVID. It's just gonna be tough to wrap. Like, accident, yes. Heart attack, yes. Cancer, yes. But COVID, you're just gonna be like, what?
Yeah, and I think what makes it so different too is that, for instance, COVID hit people of all ages, right? Even a lot of the younger ones, right, with that new variant, and but it left so many young kids without, like a lot of times when we have these other deaths, right? Say maybe it's like early 20s, for instance, like you, or even kind of a little bit after that, or me, like the hospice patients I get. We started getting patients in 30s, 40s, and that would hit me because I'm like, hey, that's hitting home. That's really close, and then of course you have 70s, 80s, 90s, and sometimes hundreds, but COVID, it was just such a different demographic of ages that it hit, that there's so many of these younger children that are left without parents.
After Robert passed, were you very vocal about COVID, or was your being vocal more about the foundation, or was it a mixture of the two?
Actually, it was probably more about the COVID initially, and more just trying to educate people. Before, and hard to believe now, I guess, because I've started learning to meet people, and I'm a little bit more on the shyer side. Robert was a little bit more out, and can go and introduce himself to people and say hi. He always ran the businesses, so he was used to doing that kind of thing. I did my job as a nurse, but then I would good and I'd go home. But I had a lot of say like news agencies, people doing stories, and of course because of who he was, and then we had so many kids, and then being young and being healthy, we had a lot of news articles and stuff, whether it was online, done on us. I was even on they were trying to do the paid leave for families on one of their commercials. And at first I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, why would I do that? But then I'm like, if that could help somebody, for people to realize that this is a real thing and it's not just affecting people who are already sick, which is not okay, by the way. I'm not okay, they were sick, so yeah, they're going to die from COVID. No. But, he was a perfect example of somebody who had everything. He did, eat clean. He didn't, drink the Cokes. He, was in good shape. He didn't drink and smoke. Like everything that you try to check off on the COVID list, he didn't do, and it still got him.
Yeah, he sounds like he was a really accomplished person, and but what didn't he accomplish? Did he talk about things? I always ask about bucket list. Did he talk about things he wanted to do that he never got to do?
No. And honestly, probably the only thing is going to be not raising his boys. He was pretty, and not that he accomplished every single goal, that he ever had, but he didn't have any regrets. He was happy with the life that he had made. For instance, when he was an MMA fighter and he was having his oldest daughter, he ended up coming back to Corpus rather than continue to train because he wanted to be close. He wanted to be with her, and so, decisions he made in his life, he was okay with all of them. There was nothing that he still needed to check off, even traveling and stuff like that. Yeah, he'd say when the kids were older, we were going to buy, like the Scooby-Doo van, one of those to go traveling, camping and take the kids out there. So everything was about what he wanted to do in the future, with the boys. And he was excited to have all the boys because now he was going to raise them, the way he tried to raise all these other young men he was helping.
Yeah, I keep going back to my dad just because I think about him all the time, but there's moments that really hit me, and get me emotional, but in a good way. It's a good sort of anytime I could think about him is a good time. I think about the things that he missed, like seeing me get married, seeing me start my own business. Never met any of my brother's kids. He's got 4. Just so many different milestones in life. Was it ever a thought to you that maybe you're too close to this, starting a foundation look, you're never going to forget about him, but everything you're doing is now he's there. Did I ever think about that?
That's a good question. Yes, I did. And I think some of it too was part of my healing as well for myself. I don't know if it necessarily helped me or not, but I know that I wanted my kids to be able to continue with his legacy, and maybe not just as a fighter, because that wasn't what his primary goal in life was, but with the foundation to be able to help these other children. And of course, when I look at them, we went to the beach the other day, and the kids found another little kid they started playing with. Dad was there, came out of the water, started throwing the football around with them, and started throwing it to my older one, Aiden. He was having a blast, and it was tough because I'm like, his dad would not have missed the opportunity. He would have called into work easily if he knew we were going to the beach. just to go with the kids. Like he had no problem telling work, hey, we got this, we got that, I gotta go, kind of thing.
I get sad, and it's okay to be sad. You're getting me here now, but I get sad when I think about all the things that I missed, but then I also think about how lucky I was to have 29 years with my dad, and to think of the people who don't. And I sort of was do what makes me happy, but it was that moment to be like, look, we don't know what's going to happen. We need to live our life and do the things that make us happy, and want to be. I'm not a religious person, but want to be the person that you want people to think of you as, if God forbid, whenever that happens, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now or 20 years from now. Did you have a passion for what he was doing, or is this just mainly driven by him?
No, actually, the first few years, I mean, I didn't get into it actually till maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, the actual like martial arts. And at first I just did it just for him, let me just go. He wants to go. We were always attached at the hip, like we were kids or something, so I'd go, and sometimes I would do my own personal work, like, my nursing job, my documentation and stuff while he was training. And then the next thing you know, when he's watching these videos, right, that he'd watch in the middle of the night on YouTube, these Gracie breakdowns and stuff, he'd be like, hey, I want to try this real quick. Because our living room, we have 2 living rooms, right? The big one and the little one. The big one was full of mats, and the smaller one that should have all this big furniture in, and you know what I mean, had all the big furniture in it. So we get up and we do whatever. So I started enjoying it. And then when he started talking to me about the history, and it wasn't just about being a fighter, it was the discipline and all these aspects of it that I would never even have thought of. I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. And he actually got me to compete. I was 40 years old. I had just had Nicholas. He was maybe 6 months old when I went to my first competition, jiu-jitsu competition. He was crazy. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I would only train for like 2 months at that point. And he's like, oh, don't worry. You'll be fine. You're good. You're good. He wanted to start competing together. Just for fun, for that to be our trip. But no, I do love the art. I don't know a lot of the other martial arts just because I didn't get there. But what he did start teaching me about jiu-jitsu and about the history of it, I fell in love with it big time, especially when I went out to California. And you're like in the headquarters, like this mega place for 200 people on one mat. I'm like, I could see my husband just standing there, like beaming, looking at this and watching their self-defense class with the women, teaching them to protect themselves, talking to the kids, teaching them about friendship and, different aspects of life, and even just seeing the coaches' interaction with the kids, with the people. It just reminded me of my husband.
Yeah.
And, to some, of course, as a fighter, my husband had to kind of have more of an intimidating look on him sometimes, depending, where he was at. But at the end of the day, he was just like a big old teddy bear. I mean, he was going to be the guy who's going to stop in the middle of a street to save a cat or a squirrel or something. And I'm like, come on, let's go. Be more behind. He's like, no, there's a kitty right there. He's hurt.
I know the feeling. I know it.
No,
you have this foundation. You have this foundation. Is there a physical place where people practice, or you're just helping people go elsewhere?
Yeah, no, right now we don't have a physical place yet. So as we talk to people, and we look at what area they live in, we, can refer them to the gyms that are closer to them and things like that we would be able to work with until we can get a physical location. But the plans with these scholarships that we can give, we want to be able to do it because we actually are using the Czech financial system, which is like a debit card system. Every Kid Sports, they're also another nonprofit organization for low-income children. They use that system as well. So they have a physical card or a digital card that we would be able to put funds on and then just direct it to, the facility or, place that they would want to go and train.
So you have this foundation. You need money. You need partnerships. You need visibility.
Yes.
Tell us, if someone gives money, where does it go? Where does it go to? How are these kids being helped?
Yeah. Well, right now, like the scholarships, what we're doing is we're going to be helping 6 months at a time. We know martial arts, it's hard to get there sometimes and things. So of course, as we're helping these, children, even these young adults, we want to be sure that they're able to get there and everything. So we would pay for 6 months at a time for the actual, say, taekwondo or jiu-jitsu classes. And then we would also give...
What does that cost?
Usually, and this is just a ballpark figure, but say like in my area right here, it's usually about $100 a month per person. Say in Houston, Texas, or California, rates are a little bit different. But so 150, I think, is what I'm looking at per month to give, for the 6 month period. And then we'll give an additional 150 for maybe the gis, the uniforms, sparring equipment, things like that they might need. And so whatever money they don't end up using, it'll go back to the foundation. So we're not losing anything. Aiden, can you help him, please? And then the youth center, we need to start putting funds together so that we can, I'm still looking at if I want to build a building or if I'm able to find one, for our first center that's already kind of ready, which would be nice because then we can kind of just get it started a little faster. I did start talking to our community centers and our schools in our area to see if initially maybe we can borrow some of their facilities so that we can at least start the programs. Start some of the jiu-jitsu classes, start some of the counseling services and things like that.
Everyone, I don't want to say, a lot of people are very helpful once something happens. So right after it happens, and you start, I do this, everyone's helpful. Has that died down? Is it still a pretty good buzz about what you're trying to do and people have momentum going?
No, it is actually still pretty good. I still have people reaching out to me, like, where are we at? What do we need? When's our next event coming up? Say for instance, like in January. So last January we had it was called a Sports Combat Festival. It's totally just made up in my head. Thought it was a cool idea because my husband was a mixed martial artist. He loved all martial arts and he thought they were all very important. They all brought something different to his life, right? So I said, wouldn't it be cool if for his anniversary, right in January every year, we have this sports festival, have stuff for the kids, taco trucks. He did love his taco trucks. That's one thing I can't say. He'd never say no to a taco truck.
Del Taco, is that the big thing in Texas? Del Taco?
Yes, those little mini Mexican tacos. Had that. I said, but have jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, boxing, Muay Thai. So we had about 7 different disciplines in this one gym doing live demonstrations and having community participation. If they wanted to try jiu-jitsu, if they wanted to try this, they could jump in and do it. And I planned it in about 3 weeks. I wasn't sure what kind of turnout we would get. We did have some media coverage, which was great. But it was really fun. The community loved it. The coaches loved it. We raised a good amount of money in that time frame, what I had to plan it in. And we were really able to start getting the word out about it. So every year we're going to do that. So we have one coming up in January.
So it's planned, January, 2-year anniversary.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing it again.
Yeah, and we want to make it bigger, bigger and better, and maybe get some bigger names to come out and just help promote it,
What's a good partner? I mean, who are the good every kid sports I know you've talked to, there's someone who's doing, similar, but it's not concentrated, and I'm sure they don't get a whole lot of jiu-jitsu people, so there's definitely opportunity there.
But I did start seeing that they were helping in boxing and a few of the other things. Because I talked to a couple of them, and I said, why don't y'all really? And I know it's the payment structure. I know that, because as a parent, it's not just a per season thing, But I did kind of throw some ideas out there, so I was so excited.
That's what you got to do. You throw ideas out there, but who else is a good partner? Who else would make a good partner?
Well, Grace University would make an awesome partner. UFC would make a great partner. I mean, for the fact that they're in mixed martial arts. That's what they do. That's what the UFC is about, and being able to help get these kids there. But also there's a whole bunch of, in our area, like Citgo, Valero, some of the refineries that are really good community partners. And they want to see these areas grow and help our kids grow. So a lot of companies like that are also able to be very helpful.
Can you grow nationally at the same time you grow locally?
Yes. And that is the plan. That is the plan. Might as well, right? We're already going. Let's just go for it. But and only for the fact too, like I said, it's not just here in my area, that these children, are without their parents, And I do take it very personally, and it is a personal thing for me, and not just because I lost my husband, but because my kids lost their father. And if I can help them in any way, any of these kids, and I can see my kids helping the other kids at the same situation they're in, and that's what I want. I want them to learn that, like when you had asked earlier, about just my husband and all this always still being around me. I don't know what my future holds for me personally. I know I'm busy right now with my 6 kids, but I want it to be more of them holding on to that and me kind of just giving them that avenue.
So how are you doing as we sit here today, and how are the kids doing today?
The kids they have their little counseling services now, their play therapy, and they're enjoying it, and they're very open about speaking. Nicholas is thinking right now. He talks to dad on his walkie-talkie randomly. He's my 2-year-old. He was just 1, when dad had gotten sick, and but they're doing better. But they have their moments, but they are very open. I told their teachers, if they start talking about dad, draw a picture. Don't act like dad's not there. Dad was there,
Yeah.
Baby. And myself, day to day, I'll be okay. And it's hard, I don't know. Sometimes it's like I have a group of widow friends. We met online, right? COVID widows. And we all go through different stages at different times. And, sometimes I tell them, my husband and I were very much in love. And no, we were not perfect at all. But, we would, we'd sneak out of the house and leave the little kids with the older kids, pretending like I was going to work and stuff, to go and, get something to drink and go out to the beach, or to go eat something without just us, and then we just pretend like we were working. He always worked late at the same time that I had to go see a patient or something, right? And until, his memorial service that I told the story, my kids are like, oh, no wonder you were always working, but we never saw the overtime hours.
Yeah.
But so we had that relationship, that he was very good about making sure our relationship was good and we took care of each other before the kids.
And what do you do when you have a moment that, what can you do to sort of step away? Do you have any relief or something do you do mentally?
No, I don't have a whole lot of relief time right now. And I still do hospice as well. So when I'm at work, it's kind of like, I have to be here focused on the families. At night, sometimes I'm able to have some moments where I can just kind of decompress and, have my own moments. And, I'm blessed, though, with what we had. I'm blessed with the children that he gave me, with the life that he taught me. You never know. Hey, maybe we'll move to California sometime and just go live on the beach, let the kids train over there. And, they want to learn how to surf like daddy used to. So I don't know. You don't know what we have, in store, but I do know that we want to work on the foundation and make sure we can be some kind of help to all the kids that need it.
Yeah, I like Texas. I always have a good time in Texas, but I just look at Texas as like, I haven't seen the bad of Texas, and it's, I don't know. There's people, I would assume you're not like the average person in Texas from what I can imagine, but there's a lot of good people everywhere, and, wherever it is that you choose to end up. And I think that community is going to be, feel lucky to have you, and what you're doing with this foundation is really, it's really important, and it's good. And it would have been very easy for you to just not do anything and focus on yourself and your family. And I'm not saying that would be selfish, but just say, hey, I don't need to think about anyone else. I look what I went through, right? Who's helping me? And I think along the way, you'll find that the help will be there. I read The Go-Giver last week, and we're going to have Bob Berg on to talk more about that. And it's just, I think everything's going to be okay. I think the stuff that you do is it's going to be useful for a lot of people. And even just this conversation that people, people are going to hear it, and they're going to feel better about whatever it is that's going on, whatever it is they're going through. Hopefully they'll feel grateful for what they have.
Yeah.
A lot of different things. And so, I think he would be very proud to see this. What would be the next thing that you would want to, pick up the phone and say, hey, look what we're doing, or look what happened, or look what I did? Obviously, each of your kids has their moments, but sort of in a bigger picture.
Yeah, and like with the foundation, I mean, I'd love to have a few centers in different parts of the, even if we have one on the east side, one on each side, north, south, east, and west, at least to, hit a little bit of each, area. Because like I said,
How many people can the centers help? Like one center?
Right now, I'm probably looking at about, I want to say it was about 60.
That's significant.
And that we would be able to, with the different kinds of services that we'll provide. And we're also starting to look at, veterans as well, for the fact that many of them, it's, sometimes the VA system is really hard to navigate. And, counseling services and like stuff like that sometimes is not so easy for them to get, and they need it just as well. Robert's dad was in the Army. He was a paratrooper, and his brothers were also, he didn't end up going to the military after his dad died, because he kind of just wanted to leave home, and he just didn't know what to do. He just left. He went on, he started fighting. So, we're kind of looking at that as well.
Yeah, I think veterans is a great cause. I know veterans who, it's a great cause. And I also think, unfortunately, if you start to say, hey, we got this foundation and the backbone of it is COVID, you're not going to get as much attention or help,
right,
financially, as if you do other things, it's unfortunate. I mean, that's why it started, so it should always be a part of it. But right. I understand that people are like, oh, COVID, well, that's not a thing, or that's we're at the tail end of this, and
it's not the cool thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, everyone doesn't. There's a lot of stuff people don't believe in until it touches them.
Right.
I can't even remember how many videos I saw of someone denying COVID, and then you see an advertisement about their death, and then there's all these people who did everything they could to avoid it and didn't. It's just been such a tragic situation and time, and really sorry that it touched your life in the way it did, and really impressed and to see what you're doing with it. So I think that. Yeah, I don't. What else would you like to say to people who have the ability to help you, whether it's money or partnerships or no other people?
Yeah, no, just any help that is out there, with any way you want to help us. Whether it is financially, whether it's helping me with the business aspect, teaching, mentoring. There's so much of this that I need to learn, and I'm learning it, and I'm getting in touch with people. But at the end of the day, this can also help your families, your kids' families. I mean, with the amount of people that have been devastated with everything that's going on, it's touched all of us, so I just want to be able to get in there and make a difference in these kids' lives. And they're our next generation. These kids are going to be growing up with one or no biological parents. This is our next generation. These are the kids we need to fight for. We need to teach them how to survive, how to be grow up in a positive manner, and how to run the world. I mean, so we want to be able to teach them from when they're little and know that they're not alone, that they have us, to help.
It's important. It's important work. This is probably going to be the toughest time I ask this question because of the way I phrase it. But we let everyone out of the Wolff Den with the same question. If you could spend a day with anyone in the world, 24 hours, and do anything you want, the two caveats are they have to be alive and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose? I know, obviously, if I didn't have those, people choose their family members all the time. But who would you like to spend a day? You can spend a day with anyone, 24 hours. Who's it going to be, and what would you guys do?
Probably, I don't know, maybe it's just the nursing in me, but probably Mother Teresa, who started the whole, nursing. We do our oath, with words that she said and things like that. She always helped the world. That's what she's
not alive anymore, correct?
Oh shoot, you said alive. I'm sorry. See, I wasn't even thinking of alive. Who would I want to spend the day with? Oh gosh, that is a really hard question.
Yeah.
You know what? Can I say two? Henry and Heat on Gracie. They're actually the ones that have the Grace University. If I could just sit and have dinner with them and talk with them and just, learn about their lives. And
the founders of Gracie?
Yes. Of the Grace University. Yes.
Grace University.
Just because, like I said, I just fell in love with the sport so much. And now I know why my husband loved it so much. And, their family and their legacy, that's what it's all about. So being able to really kind of deep into that, because then I can show my kids that.
Yeah, I also want to. I want to commend you for I want to thank you for the time and to share the story. I also want people to understand, because we do this all the time when, with mental health and all of that. Just because you're sitting here looking okay and we laugh about certain things, it doesn't mean that you're not hurting and upset and suffering. So I don't want people to think that it's not an easy conversation to have. So I really appreciate you making the time for this, and I think it's important, with the stuff that you're doing, that you have conversations like this so people understand and get the visibility out there. I don't know who's going to watch on my network. I don't have the hugest network, but I know I have people who can help and people who know people who can help, and so that's what it's all about. Check out the website. It's the Richard Villegas Foundation.org.
Yes.
So check out the website. Help however you can. Share the word. Follow them on social media if you know someone who you think you can help, and or if you have any questions about anything that Valerie is doing, reach out and let's get this thing moving.
And thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much, and I'm sorry about the excess noise, but
no, it's
just part of being a mom right now.
We're real. We're unscripted. We're unedited, and we've had way worse than whatever was going on in the background there. I can promise you that. It was still a great conversation. I got another one tomorrow, so tune in. But have a great night, and it's inspiring. Do something good for someone today.
Yeah.
Talk to you guys soon.
Bye.